Welcome back to the Pain Game. This weekend, history in the making as Moses Itauma attempts to become the youngest British heavyweight world champion of all time. And before I get what the lads have to say on this, don't forget the pay-per-view is available on DAZN. And if you are buying it, use our link is in the description below. Pain10, PAIN10, and you will get 10% off the standalone pay-per-view, and you can also sign up for the DAZN Ultimate package as well. Don't forget, use our link. Right, lads? Take Moses Itauma out of this and how good of a fighter we've seen. Is it fair, is it right that a fighter with his resume is getting a shot at the world title after so few rounds and that level of opponent so far?
Of course it's fair. He's basically done this thing where he's mashed up everyone that's been put in front of him. I like the name of the mini Mike Tyson because this is what he's showing us.
You're calling him the mini Mike Tyson, right? And from what I understand, in terms of the number of rounds he's fought, like if he was to go out there and win this in the first 2 rounds, I think he would break the record of Anthony Joshua for the fewest number of rounds to win a world title, right? Now, we know the power AJ had and we know how good he was when he was younger, but let's take it back to the criticisms that we have had of Anthony Joshua in the last few years, where we have complained that he was rushed, that he wasn't given a proper education as a boxer, that because they were too keen to make the money out of this guy, he didn't learn the lessons he should have had, that when he became world champion and it was time to take on all comers, the experience that he should have developed before becoming the man wasn't there enough. Are we in danger of repeating the mistakes of the past with Moses Itauma in not giving him them lessons and throwing him in the deep end too quickly and regretting this later on?
I think so, because forget Anthony Joshua was a lot older when he got to that position. Moses is only 21, and even Anthony Joshua was Olympic gold medalist, so he had quite a bit of experience in comparison to Moses. But this is the thing with boxing, is like, if you're good enough, you're good enough. And right now, the way he's been dispatching of people, like, it kind of makes sense. And we knew from the way he started his career, he wanted to break Mike Tyson's record. So it's obviously been in the plan for the team to move fast. And is it going to be a mistake? Is it too soon? Because like you say, once he becomes a world champion, there's no backward step.
That's my fear, lads. I want Moses
you're right,
to have...
It's a great fear.
I want Moses to have that legacy and to be, because with Fury and AJ on the way out, which I think we've all been able to tell in the last 12 months, I don't want to be repeating the same mistakes of the past. And to be fair, as you've rightly pointed out, AJ had a whole Olympic career before he even became a pro. So when we're comparing him to AJ, we're really ignoring the fact of AJ's amateur pedigree, and not that Moses has none. But I can't help but think, if anything ever happens to Moses in the next 2 years, the first thing we're all going to say, they rushed him. Straight away.
You know what? Where there's a great point here is when you actually look at the AJ situation, AJ was literally lightning in a bottle. He's incredibly marketable. He could fight massive, just look great, look like a god. Yeah. So it was like, we have to get this to market as soon as possible. So AJ was forced to really learn on a job. Now you're looking at AJ where it's gone wrong for him in certain fights. You're like, oh man, you weren't ready for this. You weren't ready for that. Moses Itauma, where it's strange is, Moses Itauma isn't AJ in terms of from a marketability stage. I don't know where people are clamoring just yet.
I think it's the opposite problem with Moses, because his personality hasn't connected yet. And I actually think maybe that's a real challenge that for him to become a superstar. I think they're pushing him maybe quicker because they're like, his achievements are what was really selling him here. So we need those achievements to kind of speak for themselves, and we need to push him as quick as we can for that reason. And that's what worries me, is like, if you could kind of take your time if the tickets were going like crazy and all of that.
Can I push back then? Can I push back on this point that you're making? Because what he's done, he's been a respecter of people's. But have you seen the respect for the fighters that he's going up against is going down piece by piece? Dillian, he tried it. Dillian, he's like, where's the werewolf? I want to see that. And then Dillian almost looked at him like, big man, you don't get to do that to me. He tried it with Hrgovic when he was like, you've been on my undercard. And Hrgovic kind of, just played him a little bit. But then I watched a video when it's talking about fighters that he knows he's better than. And he said, look, no one's better than me in this game. So you're going to see, once this guy becomes champion, let's say you put him in front of Dubois, that whole thing will be different. You will
Man,
now
I'm looking forward to that, you know.
You will now see someone that's like, I'm a champion, I'm here now, and I don't have to show you that same respect that I've shown in the old class, because we're in a new era. What we're doing is, the main conversation is, we are actually walking into a new era. And who's best primed? Moses Itauma.
All right. But we need to give the credit, the respect to Hrgovic, right? Hrgovic has been around for a while, and he's proven he is at that level where we're all looking at Moses. Like, if you can do what you've been doing to a guy on Hrgovic's level, then you're the real fucking deal. Because the guys so far, unless you think I'm wrong, have not been as good as Hrgovic. This is the best fighter he's ever been in the ring with, and there are going to be some challenges in there that he hasn't faced yet. Is that Joey? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. He is a top level heavyweight. I'd put him in the top 5 or 6 heavyweights at the moment, right? But one of the main things being underplayed here is actually what this means to Hrgovic. This is his world title fight. I think you're going to see a lot more out of Filip Hrgovic than we've seen in the past.
If Hrgovic is to win this fight, we all know Moses is the favourite, Moses the superstar. What does Hrgovic have to do in order to get the win here, and how does he have to make this fight?
I think he just needs to really take Moses out of his rhythm, because up to now, Moses has just been too fast. You know, the footwork's been too good for the opponents. But the only person I think he's fought who's been decent is been Jermaine Franklin. You know, Dillian White was way past his best, terrible performance. So I think for Hrgovic, if he gives him too much time and respect, I think it's going to be a problem. The problem he's got is the speed of Moses Itauma, so you can't afford to stand and box with him. He's going to have to make it, I don't want to say it up close and personal, but he's going to have to really set a pace to really, you know, take Moses out of his comfort zone, because we're seeing him against Jermaine Franklin in round 3. He was actually blown a little bit, Moses Itauma.
He did say it, didn't he?
Yeah,
if you remember, when he sat down, he said to his coach, "This is too fast for me. I'm blowing out my arse here." You tell he was panicking a little bit. It wasn't panicking about the punches. It was about his own gas tank, and that's because Moses Itauma does not fight like a 12-round fighter yet, and that's part of his inexperience. When he comes out, in my opinion, lads, it's the fastest road to knocking you out. And because of that, it's very high intensity. It's a lot of risk taking. It's a lot of looking for that big shot. And I don't think Hrgovic fights that way. Hrgovic is going to fight for the distance here. And it's, can he get through that early fire? And when you talk about making it up close and personal, I think he's got to, yes, land these 1-2s where he can, but hold on to Moses Itauma. Get those shoulders loaded up.
Hold on. He better not try and hold on. That's where the mistakes will be made. I think where this fight, it gets dangerous for him is, there's so many question marks about Moses Itauma. You know, we say, how does Hrgovic win this one? Well, we don't know what level of punch this guy can take. We don't know who's loaded up and hit him clean. Moses. And he's taking that punch. Yeah, we've never seen that. So that's where there's question marks. But the one thing that just sits with me, and it won't go away, I think about Zhilei Zhang versus Hrgovic. I think about that fight, and I think about that first, like, Hrgovic goes down in the first round, literally, and Zhilei Zhang could bang. What was his biggest problem? He never had the gas tank to finish it. Now we're going up in a guy that's ruthless. He's got power. This is why I think this fight ends early. And if he is trying to lean into, this guy's got great feet. He will time him, counter punch, and he's going down. I think it'll be a one-hit quitter as well. That's why I'm seeing this fight. I don't give Hrgovic.
You know what I mean about holding on, though? Why I'm saying hold on is, I'm saying as a way, it's very, if you're trading mid-range with Moses Itauma, you're just asking for trouble. And what I mean is, get your shots off and then clinch with him and do what Tyson Fury and the likes of them have done before to stop a power puncher. You've got to do anything you have to do to neutralize it and to tire those arms out a little bit, because early on, the more you trade back and forth, I think you're asking for trouble because of that speed.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. I think if you're getting up to close and personal in the sense of mid to close range, I think Moses is too slick and too dangerous early. I just mean it more in the sense of the type of pace that he needs to set. Double jab, triple jab. He needs to be going and going again because, like I say, we're seeing him tired against Jermaine Franklin. And if Jermaine Franklin can last 5 rounds, the condition he was in, Hrgovic is a much better athlete than Jermaine Franklin is. And the fact he's now training with Abel Sanchez out in Big Bear, I think, he talked about I don't know if you've seen the training little mini documentary, he was saying he's never seen anyone run like Filip Hrgovic. So I think his engine's going to be great. I think we're going to see the best possible version.
I think Hrgovic is going to start fast. He started fast against Daniel Dubois. In terms of the Zhile Zhang fight, all of us would acknowledge it would be very, very, very hard to go into a fight where your father, who is part of your team, passes away in the build-up to that fight. It does throw things, not just from a mental standpoint, obviously preparation-wise. Anyone in that situation understands that your mind is going to be in other places at certain times. I'm probably one of the minority that does feel that it was a fair decision for Hrgovic to win that fight. I do think Hrgovic won that fight. I think he just about edged it. However, the one thing I would say is you got to ask yourself the question, is Filip Hrgovic, what do you think is Filip Hrgovic the most confident opponent that Moses Itoma's gone in with?
Yeah.
Does he have the best jab that Moses Itoma's gone in with?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's also the biggest.
And does he have the most power that Moses Itoma has gone in with?
Yes.
He also,
and it's the stamina as well. Like I think people underestimate. Like when he fought Adelaide, he threw 3 times the punches Adelaide threw. That's not like normal. Like I know he's faded before, but actually, like Loza says, I think the stamina game is his best opportunity if he can make it through the speed early on, which is a massive if, because let's be real, very rarely do people do that. But that inexperience from Moses, that lack of fight management against a fat, terrible version of Franklin, the worst version I've seen of Franklin in a long time. And the fact that he was ready, he was almost punching himself out a bit. He caught himself in time, and very well done to him for doing that. Shows he's got that natural instinct to realize, but still, against Filip Hrgovic, who, unlike everyone else, he's going to come in there and try and boss this guy. And that could be his undoing. I think that could be really dangerous. But the point is, like you say, confidence is a huge thing. And everyone who gets in there with Moses is thinking, fuck, he's going to get in there and he's going to stick it on him. And here's a question for you, boys. The chin has been questioned because he's not been in there with anyone competent enough to land on him properly. Is this where we're going to see Moses cracked good and proper with a big right hand?
You would think so, because Jermaine Franklin was able to counter him in, I think it was round 3 and 4. He was getting, I know it was only small pockets of success, but we're talking, like you say, Franklin, who's massively out of shape. And Filip Hrgovic is, in my opinion, better in every department. He's got the height and reach. He's got better feet than Franklin did. He's arguably got a better chin
as well. He showed that against Dubois.
Dubois
cracked him and cracked him and cracked him. And it was the cuts that stopped that fight. People forget that. He didn't get knocked out.
Zhile Zhang is probably, in Dubois, probably arguably 2 of the biggest punchers in boxing.
In the fucking world, right?
Exactly.
David Adelaide the same. Round 7, he took clean, unanswered punches to a point where you thought, are they going to give a standing count in a minute? And then within the last minute of that round, not only did Hrgovic recoup, he ends up hurting Adelaide bad. And this is the thing. The speed kills, and it's the shots that you don't see that definitely hurt you. But you also have to flip the coin and go, how much does it take out of you, both mentally and physically, when you land that combination that you've been landing on sparring partners, on opponents, and all of a sudden, this fella's still there, and he's still pumping that consistent jab out there, trying to throw that 1-2. You then do start to question yourself a little bit, and you start to think, do I want to reserve a little bit of energy? And the second you do that, and I'm not saying this will definitely happen, I'm just talking about my own experience. The second you do that, all of a sudden, you don't realize it's happening, but it does become a little bit easier for your opponent. The pace slows down somewhat, and that's what Hrgovic will want.
Especially when the best tool Moses Itouma has, among all the tools he's got, is speed, in my opinion. And you've seen him slow down a bit with Franklin. He became more methodical. By that point, he'd put plenty of dints in Franklin, so it didn't matter so much. But if we were to imagine a scenario where this exact scenario was to happen against a Hrgovic, he's going to punish you a lot more than Franklin was going to. He's going to smell that on you. He's going to go, oh, you slowed down. He's going to know. And
do you think
that's
he
what
keeps
makes
him
this
honest,
fight
though?
fascinating.
But do you think he can stay honest? Because it's like when I think of the fight that we just had on the weekend, Rolly Romero, and Rolly felt something from Tio that said, I don't want to engage like that. And we don't know if what he feels back from Itauma, those heavy-handedness that says, you know what, while I would like to punch and I like to throw these, it's hurting. Those shots to the body are really...
Question then. He's taken shots off Zhang and Dubois. Moses is faster than them. There's no doubt about that. And like we say, it's the ones you don't see, which that could be a problem. But can he hit that much harder than those guys? I'm not sure he can. I think it's the delivery that makes it, and the variety of punches and the skill in it. But like, if you're saying to me, has Hrgovic got the potential to get through those first 3 rounds and then turn the tide? That's a possibility here. And I don't think we can just write that off and say it's not going to happen. No way.
I know sparring, but also he did drop a prime Deontay Wilder in sparring, had wars with him and 100% dropped him. I can say that for fact. 100% dropped a prime Deontay Wilder in sparring. 16-ounce gloves, head guards, fair enough. But what I'm saying is,
but that makes it more impressive. That makes it more impressive when a head guard in big gloves. I think that actually...
I'm interested to see how he approaches this fight, Hrgovic, because he really does stick it on you from the off, and he is the boss in there. And I wonder if he's going to be a little bit more careful and think, right, let me just try and get through this first few rounds. Yeah, I'm going to be in his face, but I'm going to be aware of like where he's planning the fight. He'd be stupid not to plan the fight and think about the long term here and go, the way I beat this kid is to get to the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th round. That is my best bet here, and I just need to get through the early fire. And if he can do that, I think he does have a real chance. It's just whether or not he can.
Can I ask you this question then, guys? Does Hrgovic believe he's the underdog in this one?
I don't think he believes it in his mind. If all the interviews that I've seen, he just says Moses is just a kid. And like what Joey said earlier on, Hrgovic does start fast. Like, I don't think he's going to be looking towards the 10th round. I think he's going to say, right, okay, I need to take this young man out of his comfort zone early. Let him feel what it's like to be in a hard fight and a hard war. Yeah. Because if you give Moses Itauma too much time, he's young, he's fit, he's sharp, he's going to be more dangerous. You can't give him any room to breathe. He's got to have that approach.
I think this is the perfect fight, lads, to expose any issues in we have of Moses Itauma, because there's a great chin in front of him, there's a good gas tank, there's a high output, there's experience in front of him, and with Moses, the things that worry me about this situation is his footwork is unbelievable, but it's insanely explosive, and we know with athletes, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, right? You tend not to get stamina that's elite and explosiveness that's elite. You're really, you're either type A or type B. And when you use that footwork to avoid punches, it's phenomenal to watch, but you can't do that for 12 rounds, can you, really? So if he hasn't gotten him out of there in the first 3 to 5 rounds, that's where I worry for Moses, because I'm like, when you can't move your feet as much and the explosiveness is going from those shoulders and he's in your face, jabbing away and digging you, where does his mind go then? And that's where the questions of a 21-year-old who hasn't had all of the education that I kind of wanted for him is going to have to dig fucking deep if that happens, big time.
You know what, sir? I've got a question for whoever on the panel wants it, but it's really making me think as you're talking. What does this do to British boxing, or boxing in general, if Moses Itauma doesn't win this one?
Is it a Joe Joyce situation, Joey, where basically when Dubois got humbled by Joyce and it set him back, but it didn't stop him, it didn't completely derail him? Is that what this would look like potentially?
I think it's a little bit different, because from a mental standpoint, I think we always knew what we were going to get with Daniel Dubois. And I think that it's very rare that losses don't psychologically affect a fighter all that much. I think we look at Anthony Joshua and other fighters and we could go, right, that has an extreme effect. With Daniel Dubois, I do very much feel like psychologically he's able to just put aside the baggage and go again. But with Moses Itauma, one, we don't know whether that's a thing. And two, there's one thing that makes me question that. And that's, do you lads remember when Moses Itauma basically said about the influence that Ben Davison had on his career, and he was basically saying, I was thinking about walking away from boxing. And I thought, what? Think about walking? You have, although you're the man, and I acknowledge this, you ain't done nothing yet. Why would you be thinking about walking away? He's kind of lost the love for it and whatever. And I'm thinking, you didn't even really have any senior amateur bouts. How could you have lost enough for it? You ain't been a kid that's been doing this for all this. I mean, he is
Can
young.
I ask a question though? Is that a case of like when you're insanely talented, which everyone on this panel has absolutely acknowledged? We've compared him to Mike Tyson, for fuck's sake. Like I personally think his natural talent level is far and above Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, who have dominated British boxing. Like I think we're dealing with a super talent, and sometimes when things just come so easy. Not that he hasn't worked hard, but he's got these God-given gifts. The desire to prove how great you are sometimes isn't quite what other people have who are just bang average fighters. Is that also a challenge for him to keep that hunger?
I think that's a great point you've just made, and when Joey was saying that there, it really opened my eyes, because in boxing, generally speaking, the ones who are the most successful have often come from like you say, they're maybe not as gifted, or they've come from a harder situation. And Moses, like you say, is so talented, and the fact that you mentioned he was thinking about walking away, that does make me think, like, how much does he really want this? Like, how big is his desire? Because when a fight gets hard, if you're getting hurt or you get put down, that's when you've got to really think, how much do you want it? And you've got to have that deep desire. And you're making me question it when you're saying that there, Joey. I think that's a really good point, because
there are so many questions, though, aren't there, lads? Like that's the issue, isn't it?
Young fighter that just turned up.
Yeah,
I don't feel like I've ever thought about a fighter when we're talking predictions and had so many questions. Like, he's just been too talented. There's just been no questions basically answered. It's crazy.
And this is when you're fighting like Dillian White and Jermaine Franklin. Like, these are not guys who are going to test him, and this is going to be the first real test, in my opinion. Let's talk about what we expect to happen then, lads. What do you KG's already alluded, so let's go with KG. How do you visualize this happening?
Second or third round knockout, like devastating.
Any reason?
Hrgovic goes, yeah, because I just feel that Hrgovic is going to try and... I was asking you early, who do you think is the underdog? And he's calling him the little boy. He's going to want to assert himself, dominate him. You're not dominating this kid. You're going to walk on. You're going to step in to try and send a message. Just say, listen, I'm the big boy in this one. Kind of what AJ wanted to send a message to Dubois, and he got another message. I think the other message is coming again, where it's like, look, you're not gonna dominate me, and I'm a better boxer than you. I'm more skilled than you, and let's test your chin. Let's see how good you are. And that one hitter quitter, and it's the punch that he won't see. It will be one of those. So that's why I'm saying 2 to 3. See you later. Everyone goes home early.
Who's next?
It's difficult. This one, the more I've spoken with you guys today, I'm rethinking everything, because with all the experience that Hrgovic has gotten, the speed, it's the speed of a Moses Itauma, and we've seen with Hrgovic, he can switch off, and he hasn't got the quickest of hands. And although we kind of said with Jermaine Franklin, he come in not the best of condition, he's actually defensively not bad at times. He's quite sharp with his head movement. His counters are pretty good. So, in one sense, he was out of shape, but he might be better defensively than Hrgovic. What Hrgovic does well is he controls the distance, and he puts his punches together, and that kind of stops his opponents from actually punching. But you talked about that speed earlier on. I'm going with Moses Itauma. I see a stoppage from Moses. I think you'll cut him up as well, because we've seen that Hrgovic tends to bleed very easily. I think that could definitely play its part. But yes, are definitely making me questioning my decision. I'll tell you that much.
I'm gonna say around 8 or 9 stoppage for Moses Itauma. I think it goes later, and I think that we get answers to a lot of questions, because I genuinely think that Moses Itauma is probably going to have to come through a scare in this fight. That's not me necessarily saying I think he'd be knocked down, because I think it'd be a pretty weightless prediction to be able to say, yeah, he gets knocked down and gets back up, when we haven't seen that before. It's not like we're talking about Tyson Fury or someone here. But what I do think is that he may well have a round or two when you start to go, oh, fucking hell, maybe it is a bit too early. But I do think that if he can show the sort of heart that he's going to need. There's one thing, by the way, where he kind of said, yeah, it's not a good thing to have a good chin. Okay, that's all well and good, and it might just be that you're going back and forth with your opponent, because this is when Hrgovic was saying about it being important
you get hit
to
too
have
much.
a good
Is
chin.
the point he's making.
He's making that point, but let me just say one thing. It is a good thing to have a good chin. There's not a heavyweight champion, a Hall of Famer that didn't have a good chin. You know what I mean? So it's very important that you do have a good chin. And I think that we're going to get some answers to some questions about Moses Itoma's chin in this fight. I think he might have some sticky moments, but I do think that the talent will prevail at some point. I think that Hrgovic's excitement in being able to get on top in moments in the fight may well unravel him. And I think that he probably gets stopped without touching the canvas, Hrgovic.
You've made me think something. Sorry, Geordie. Like, I hate what you lot have done because I came into this fight, I came into this conversation a lot more confident. And now there's one question I'm asking. How does he deal with frustration? We saw Ben Whittaker by, remember when he goes over the rope? Liam Cameron. And Cameron frustrated him because he never got his own way. Even though Ben Whittaker was more skilled and he's a better fighter, frustration took over. And then we saw what happened. I don't know if Moses Itauma, how he deals with, this ain't getting exactly the way I need it to go. I don't know how he's going to manage that.
How does his coach manage that situation? Because we've seen Ben Davison sometimes in those scenarios doesn't necessarily give the best advice. But
roll the dice.
There's no way he's saying roll the dice to Moses in this one, surely.
My spin the wheel.
my ideal scenario would be for Moses to have some kind of resistance, some pushback, an issue, because he needs experience. If you are going to go in there with Daniel Dubois, you need some of that. I don't want the first time he has a wobble to be against Daniel Dubois, who can kill you. You know what I mean? So I think that would be the best scenario, even as a fan of Moses. I think that the aggression and the confidence and the throwing of more punches will be Hrgovic's undoing, because I think one of the things that helped Franklin is that he wasn't ambitious. He really didn't ever look like he believed he could win that fight. And I think that Hrgovic's belief is going to leave more openings for Itauma to get the job done. And like KJ says, the ones you don't see, I think there will be ones that he doesn't see. It's just how long it takes. And I do think that Moses might have learned from that. The level of pace was set last time, but Hrgovic is going to push the fucking pace. So that means it's probably going to go earlier even, in my mind, than the Franklin fight. So I see it in the first 4 rounds maybe, but I would not be surprised if Joey is spot on, because I don't think aside from KJ, none of us are underestimating Hrgovic here. And I hope KJ is right, by the way, because if Moses can do this and he can make Hrgovic look average the way he's made everyone else look average, well then, wow, that is that's beyond any statement from anything we've seen. And that actually, even though AJ won the belt, after a certain amount of rounds, like we say, we had a lot more experience in the Olympics. That would be one of the most impressive things we've seen from a fighter in UK history in terms of beating a fighter at that level, at this few rounds, at this age. That would be amazing if he starches them early on.
Like I say, though, the opposition that AJ won the belt against, that's the key thing that you need to realise here.
Yeah.
This is why it would set Moses Itauma up so much better. Charles Martin won the belt on a technicality. He was boxing a guy, was it Vodskov? I can't remember his name even now, but he was boxing a guy who had an ankle injury, right? And then he goes on and he fights Eric Molina in his next fight. So I think it was Eric Molina. Whereas when you look at the trajectory that Moses is on right now, it's going to be Hrgovic, a legit bogeyman in that division. When we say people making him look average, no one's ever made him look average, even in his defeats. He's always had good moments in there.
He took fucking Dubois to the cleaners early on.
To dangerous places.
There's no fucking way anyone can say Hrgovic is just a shit heavyweight journeyman type. No, he's legit as fuck.
So if he goes Hrgovic, Frank Sanchez for his next 2 fights, then I think he will have done something. He will have done something even more impressive at that stage potentially than Anthony Joshua.
Something else is going to happen. I'm telling you, if he does him in 2 rounds, you see the call for Dubois versus Itauma will be like no man's business. And it makes sense. Boxing needs, when we talk about the next era of boxing, we're actually here. We've seen what it is with Fury. We've seen what it is with AJ. And we know where Usyk's mind is. He's now got the silk pajamas on. He's not hungry the same way he once was. So now we need the new school to come in. And you have a prime, you have Dubois in his prime and one man that's facing his prime, but a second round knockout, it says it's a total clash. they must meet. And that's where that almost would excite boxing again, because I feel like in heavyweight boxing, we're in a lull because we're at the end, and we need something. So
that fight as well, ironically, AJ Fury is the mega fight, in terms of legacy and all of that. But in terms of actual in-ring fights, that would dwarf AJ versus Fury, and that these two are in their prime, and it would just, it's going to be unbelievable, right? We'll leave it there. Don't forget, everyone, get your predictions in the comments below. If you haven't already and you haven't got the pay-per-view sorted out, use our code PAIN10 for 10% off when you get the pay-per-view on DAZN. Big love to the boys. Check out all of their fucking great channels. I'll put the links in there in the description below as well. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.